A hallmark of being a famous celebrity is having hundreds and millions of adoring fans, which in this day and age, thanks to the internet, is easy to grow. With only a screen between them, idols and their fans can interact at any time, anywhere in the globe. These fans practically worship them, from watching their movies and buying their merchandise to visiting the places their idols go to. But what if all that admiration and adoration reach a frenzy and suddenly turn into an obsession, with growing urges to stalk and possess their idol, even reaching the point of kidnapping and repeatedly defiling their virtue? Let us dive into that story of Annabelle Huggins, a famous actress who was kidnapped and raped by a taxi driver and his two friends. Annabelle Huggins was born to a Filipino-American father and pure Filipino mother. Due to her mixed blood, even as a child, she had a face fit for a celebrity. But even though her dad was a foreigner, she still had her fair share of hardships in life. Annabelle, along with her sibling, was entrusted and raised by her aunt and uncle. They welcomed the siblings into their family, and they were loved and cherished, treated as one of their own. However, due to poverty, Annabelle had to stop studying in 1958 to work at a billiard hall, where she met an individual named Ruben Ablaza. As to who he is in her life, we will cover that later. This is also where she was noticed by a famous producer, and her path to stardom began. Annabelle debuted in the 1963 film Adonis Abril alongside Nestor de Villa, and later debuted in Hollywood in the film Backdoor to Hell with Jack Nicholson. She also starred in the 1964 film Siyam na Buhay ni Martin Pusa with Joseph Estrada. Because of this, she quickly rose to fame, and her life greatly improved. It almost seemed to be her destiny to be a star. Since then, she has been able to help and give back to her aunt and uncle, as well as send her siblings to school. She began to have the reputation of being the number one choice when it came to leading lady roles in action movies. Life was perfect, and nothing could ever seem to go wrong. But alas, everything went downhill when her paths crossed again with Ruben Ablaza, a taxi driver she met back when she was working at the billiard hall. Unbeknown to Annabelle, Ruben was a stalker, obsessed with her, following her life closely, and even planning to kidnap her. She was kidnapped twice. The first time was on October 13, 1962, when the 19-year-old Annabelle was abducted by two men in a taxi and brought to Hagonoy, Bulacan. According to Annabelle's testimony, she was beaten and then raped multiple times by Ablaza, and his two companions also joined in. All her efforts to resist were futile, and she could only silently suffer her fate. Fortunately, she was rescued by the Philippine Constabulary, which quickly pressed charges against Ablaza and his men for forcible abduction with rape at the Court of First Instance in Bulacan. But that didn't stop him. On March 22, 1963, while the case was still pending, Annabelle was sweeping the front of her aunt's house in Makati when she was once again abducted by two men and brought back to Ablaza's cab, which sped off before she could even scream. Inside the taxi, she was placed in the backseat, in between Ablaza and the other man, with her head pressed down on the floor and Ablaza's hand covering her mouth. They wasted no time and began harassing and defiling Annabelle as if they were hungry dogs presented with their first meal. She was first brought to a house in Caloocan owned by a friend of Ablaza's, but quickly moved to another friend's house as soon as they caught wind of the police chasing after them. They spent 2 weeks abusing and raping the young Annabelle. After that, Ablaza saw an opportunity to bring Annabelle to Bulacan to ask for the dismissal of the charges against him. But this scheme rapidly went awry when they were discovered by Annabelle's uncle and the police. Ablaza was once again arrested. Annabelle recounted the events and testified that Ablaza and his men kept watch over her to prevent her from escaping, On the other hand, for the defense, only Ablasa took the stand and gave his own version of the incident. According to him, he and Annabelle were lovers, and Annabelle was being abused by her own aunt, which led to them running away together back in November. They stayed at his uncle's house until the police found him and he was arrested. He also said that in March, he received a letter from Annabelle pleading with him to come take her away from her aunt's place in Makati. So he quickly hopped on his taxi cab and drove over to the place detailed in the letter. Once he arrived, he claimed that he called her and that Annabelle willingly went to him and entered the taxi, even saying that they agreed to marry each other. And so they went to the municipal hall in Malolos to draft up the case. And when they saw Annabelle's uncle and the constabulary, Annabelle quickly changed her mind. On March 7, 1967, the court decided to rule Ablasa guilty of the charges of kidnapping and serious illegal detention and sentence him to the death penalty. Upon reaching the verdict, the lower court expressed the realization of the responsibility they have in finding the real truth, as Ablasa was charged with a capital offense. However, the case of Annabelle and Ruben was particularly difficult to determine, as they only had the two clashing testimonies of both sides, and the decision was based on the credibility of the said testimonies. Who was telling the truth was the only thing that mattered in the end. Due to Annabelle's candor and sincerity in her testimony, the court decided in her favor. It was the proof of the court need that she was telling the truth when combined with her shyness and fear. In contrast, Ablasa was spotted gazing intently at Annabelle, a photo of a guy admiring his beloved. The two men that were with Ablasa were later executed, while Ablasa evaded the same fate and was instead given a life sentence in New Bilibid prison until the later part of 1990, when he died of natural causes not long after his release. According to reports, Annabelle Huggins is currently in her 70s and continuing to avoid any exposure or attention from the public, and because of this, there is no more additional information about her. All cases that were already buried underground have unique stories and facts that need to be revealed, and our duty is to expose what true crime documentaries don't show you. Real cases and real people. This is Uncover.